Hi, and welcome to the Room for Reinvention podcast. I'm your host, Kim Conant. Today I'm speaking with Malika Malhotra, and she is the brand CEO, brand strategist, mentor, and speaker, helping women entrepreneurs master their message, nail their power niche, and build their brand empire. I love Malika. She's one of my favorite people. She is so full of knowledge. She's an amazing mentor. And if you want to know anything about personal branding and niching, she is your woman. You're going to get a lot out of this episode. So here we go. Hi, Malika. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on as our guest today on this episode. And as you know, the Room for Reinvention podcast is about reinvention and women sharing their stories. And we're excited to have you on today to share your reinvention story.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think, and you probably agree, as women, we are always reinventing ourselves. We are single, you get married, you become a mother, maybe you go to corporate, you leave corporate, you start an entrepreneurial adventure. And like even within an entrepreneurial journey, you're constantly evolving and pivoting. And
Yes.
that's kind of where my reinvention story lies is I think, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. And so when
Wow.
you've been an entrepreneur that long, of course, there's always twists and turns in the story, right? It's never a dull moment when you're running your own business. And like you, I am a photographer. I've been a photographer since 2008. I started with children and families, and did, senior portraits, and then did headshots and did, brand photography. I was doing all of the things, which probably wasn't a smart strategy to do. I call that sort of my junk drawer season of my business. Um, and, now as a brand strategist, I know the importance of niching down and finding sort of your lane. And so, as an entrepreneur, there are always opportunities that come your way, right? And so you have to make decisions based on your intuition, based on opportunity in the marketplace, based on your skills and your strengths and the vision that you might have, even if it feels uncomfortable. So,
Yeah.
For me as a photographer, for many, many years, I love the work, as you know, the storytelling, the creativity. But there came a moment for me where I had this itch to do more than the photography. I used to worry of what if something happens to my hands or to my eyes, right?
Yeah.
And what would I do then with my business? And I started to sort of broaden the scope of my services and doing photography, mostly for women in business. I was sort of niching down to that, and then started to do some strategic work, because the best photos are that grounded in really strong strategy,
Yeah.
understanding what, these women in business, what their mission and their vision, their ideal client. So I was asking all of those questions. And I really loved that side of the work, the strategic work. And I saw an opportunity to scale my brand in that scope, where instead of one-to-one, now I could really make an impact on a broader scale. And I could really sort of manage my energy and capacity a little bit better. And so these thoughts were all kind of filtering through my head, but I was scared to kind of
Yeah.
shift from being a photographer to now going into this new industry of strategy, business, brand strategy. And although I was doing the work, I wasn't claiming it. I wasn't saying that's what I was.
Mm.
And that was scary to think that I could make a pivot and sort of redefine myself because this is what everybody already knew me for.
Right.
And would it be smart to rock the boat and walk away from something that's been doing pretty okay, like doing well, people knew me about it, and go into a space where I had to rebuild the brand as a strategist?
Yeah. Reinvent yourself.
Reinvent myself. And also to add to that, how comfortable is it to be behind the lens all
Yeah.
the time, right? Like your face behind the lens and you're coaching your clients, but you really aren't in the spotlight. But making this shift to becoming a mentor, a strategist, a speaker, I would be shifting into in front of the spotlight. And that was very uncomfortable. But, I've always invested in coaches and mentors to help me grow my business, grow myself personally and professionally. And, you learn, they teach you that discomfort means you're growing, and it's something you shouldn't walk away from. You shouldn't
Right.
just stay in what feels safe. And you should actually break through that discomfort so that you
Mm-hmm.
can grow and explore a new path, which is kind of what I did, which, you know, 2015, I put a stake in the ground that said, I am only going to be a brand photographer. I cut out all of the other things. And then in 2018, I started doing a little bit of strategy work. I was doing both at the same time. So it was kind of a gradual shift. I moved to Maine, which meant I had to reinvent myself in a new place. So another sort of tension and stress of like how to build a business. And we had a pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Photographers, the pandemic hurt our businesses a lot
Mm-hmm.
because no one is, taking pictures at a time where you have to be, homebound.
Yeah.
And then I decided I was going to go all in and work on being a strategist, scale my brand online, work with people from all over the world, and kind of redefine myself. So I actually had to shift even my brand name. It used to be Miki Photo, and I had so much brand equity in that Miki Photo name. I loved everything I had built, from 2008 for 10 years, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to kind of walk away from it and walk into my personal brand, which is now malikamalhotra.co, because it wouldn't confuse people. If you hear Miki Photo, what's the first thing you think? She's only a photographer, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I'm going to practice what I preach, which is branding and having a singular, streamlined message that's clear, then I knew I had to shift the branding and move into my personal brand, which gave me more of an umbrella that I can kind of now be still a photographer for some of those brand photo shoots, do the strategy work, speak, mentor.
Mm.
But it was definitely uncomfortable and scary to walk away from what people know you for many, many years.
Yeah, not only did you do that, but you also moved to a completely different state, different area. Your whole lifestyle changed and your network.
Yes.
It's interesting because I don't think a lot of people know what goes into branding photography. And, I'm recently have got some new clients and they have come to me and say, I don't know what to do at all about any of their personal branding. And you're like, oh, so as you know, some people come to you, they know exactly what they want. They want you to just take the pictures, they show you, they've got their brand established. But then you have other people that are like, I need to build my personal brand and, you know, I want you to help me. But as we know, as photographers, the visual is just one part.
Yes.
And so you're helping people with their whole brand, correct?
Yeah. Their
Yeah.
story, their message. How do you differentiate? What do you believe in? Right. If you're going to tie that to photos, they're going to even be better, more impactful,
Mm-hmm.
more emotionally connected photos if you know those things in your foundation of your brand. I always used to say that brand photo shoots aren't like show up and shoots.
Yeah, no. Yep. I tell
No,
people, yep.
you need to do the work beforehand. These photos are meant to grow your business at the end of the day. They are meant to connect with your audience and tell stories that are going to resonate with them so that they know, like, and trust you, and that you become the person, the leader, the authority that they want to hire, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
not vanity shoots. They're not, we're not influencers. We are business people that are using these visual assets to grow our business.
Yeah, that's a good point because a portrait, yeah, you can show up and it's a portrait. But I did have another inquiry that thought that they started with the photo shoot to build their brand. And I was like,
Interesting.
no.
Yeah.
Because how many times as a photographer have you had clients come to you and say, Kim, I need new pictures? Their pictures that they have currently on their website technically are beautiful, but they don't represent who they are because they didn't have their brand fleshed out. So
Yes.
they do need to do that work first because the visual part is just one part of your brand. There's like
Right.
three. It's like the verbal, the value, and your vision, and they need to all come together. They
Yes.
complement each other.
Yes. And that's why, you know, you're at risk if you do the photos or the copywriting or the website before you do any work on the brand and the strategy and the
Mm-hmm.
plan and the message, because that's when I find people are changing all the time. A new color for their website, new offer, new copywriting, because they haven't done the work to figure out that foundation.
Mm,
So yeah, that's what I was finding as I was doing the photography, that I kept doing the strategy work, and I actually really, I loved it, and
mm,
I thought I was good at it. And so to walk away from what people knew you for and having a very strong business, and I think of the environment, all the environmental things kind of helped me make that decision. It would
yeah.
have been harder if there wasn't a pandemic, or if I was
Mm-hmm.
still living in the same state, right? And so it sort of forced me to make these decisions, to kind of jump into this next pivot of my business. But I'm so glad that I did. I'm like so happy with how my brand is forming now. And I feel like there's so much opportunity. I mean, 5% of my business now is photography, and 95% is really strategy and mentorship.
Wow.
And, I can work with people all over the world, which is harder to do as a photographer.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so in the beginning, when you were thinking about making the change, you had mentioned that you had done it slowly, right? You had started to implement it. And I think that that's the most important part. Like when you have that nagging,
The
or
it.
not nagging, yeah, that itch, and
Yeah.
you're maybe too afraid. But I think a lot of people get stuck in that spot where they're like too afraid. Like we have mortgages, we have kids going to college. It's like you feel you're kind of like, oh, I can't do that, I can't take that risk. But I find that a lot of people that I'm doing the podcast with is they have slowly introduced it, or they've done it as a side gig as they
Yep.
started to build it up. It's there's many ways to take that chance and take that risk to make it less risky, I guess. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I think, I definitely took some smaller steps. I definitely invested in coaches and mentors to
Mm,
help me in my mindset, in the strategy of unfolding this new brand. I definitely leaned on my community, right, of other women who actually knew my brand or knew what I was doing, to help me, understand how to communicate it better for people who already know me. I kept
mm,
thinking, do I do Miki photo branding? Is it like, do I use it as a bridge? And really what it came down to, and for anyone who wants to reinvent themselves, it's the vision you have for yourself. You have to look at where you want to really see yourself in 5 years and 10 years. And even a good friend had said, where do you see yourself at 90 years old, sitting on your rocking chair, talking to your grandchildren? What are you going to say is the work that you treasured the most? And for
mm,
me at that time, it wasn't the photography. I loved it, but for me, it was, building these communities of women that would be leaders and that would stand in their power for their brands, and that would really leverage their skills and strengths in a way so that they could attract more people and help them and have impact, which is what I do in terms of branding and strategy. And that really shed a light of, okay, the light is green, keep going.
yeah.
If this is what I want to do and tell my legacy of my kids, then it's good. You can, it doesn't mean you burn the bridge of where you were. You carry it with you to where you're going.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I love that. Because your photography, also the way that you can think visually, is a great tool that you can use with your clients as well. Like you
100%.
already have all of that, but then getting behind the or wait, getting in front of the camera and doing the speaking and having that experience, now it's like bringing all of that experience and growing on top of, you know what I mean, adding to it.
Yeah, and I think, that's an important lesson, is to see the previous you, whatever you were doing before the transition, how can you leverage that as a skill, as a point of differentiation to what you want to do now? And so I think it helps my brand knowing that I was a photographer, that I am an expert in brand visibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that helps my clients. Really, at the end of the day, it's becoming the sought after expert. So visibility, photography is part of the equation. And so now I have all of these skills and strengths that I can use to help my clients get to that next level for their brand.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. How when people come to you, I want to talk a little bit about your business because I know that you're really into niching. Like
Yes,
that's
I'm obsessed. Obsessed.
it says. Yeah, I recently met this person online on Instagram that is doing the opposite, right? Is saying to people, don't niche, don't niche. And I was curious to hear his point of view. I don't know enough about him. I've just seen a few things, but I want to hear why niching you feel is the most important.
Yeah, I think if you're a solopreneur, and most of my clients are, and you're looking to grow your business and attract, good clients and make good money, it is very hard to do that if you are positioning yourself as a Jane of all trades, a generic brand.
Yeah.
When you can claim something, put a stake in the ground that says, I'm a photographer that works with realtors, you're making the pool of talent and competition smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And now your messaging, your offers are directed to that niche of what do realtors need? What kind of photos do realtors need? What are their problems? What are their goals and dreams? Where are they getting stuck? Everything can be tailored for them. So it's very clear, it's very direct, it's very focused. And it will help you not only stand out, but then it will help you sort of get rid of any imposter syndrome you might have, any of those issues that, you're being overlooked, overwhelmed. It just makes everything easier, to be honest, at the end of the day. Of course, you have to make sure that the market is viable, that there's growth there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you have strengths and skills that you can leverage to meet the needs of that target. But I just think when you can find a specialization, an area of expertise, a specific audience, when you go all in on something that makes you different, and then you can create a solution that is signature to you. Those four things are what I really try to build into the niche. Then it's much easier for people to find you,
Mm-hmm.
refer you, remember you, right? Talk about you, instead of saying, I'm a photographer that works for business owners. Well, I have no idea what your expertise is, who I should send your way. And then someone else says, I work with realtors and I do a lot. I'm really good at the team shots, group shots. I'm like, oh, I know all these real estate teams. I'm going to send them your way.
Yeah.
So for me, it's becoming a specialist in today's sort of modern marketplace that's highly saturated, is very competitive, is the way that you can stand out. It's the way that you can become the sought after expert and then charge higher prices because you're a specialist.
Yeah, yeah, that's really smart. And I remember listening to an interview of yours, and I liked how you had said it makes it easier when you're at a networking event or you're talking to somebody and you say what you do. And if you're like, "Oh, I'm a life coach." It's like, okay, but you don't know what they specialize in.
You want to paint a picture, right? Paint a picture of who that person is that you work with specifics. Like niching to me is like equal to being super hyper micro and specific.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like going small so you can go big. And by niching down, you're able to really increase the potency of your brand, the relevance of your brand, the resonance of your brand, and how people can really find you much easier. So there's a lot of benefits to it. I know it's hard for people. They don't want to be put in a box. They're multi-passionate, right? But I have seen with many of my clients that once you niche and you get a little bit more narrow and focused, the traction that you can get, the momentum you can get for your business, it just can grow faster than if you just say that you do all the things. Because honestly, if you do all the things, you almost have like 4 micro businesses underneath
Yeah.
one business. And
Hmm.
and who has time for that? Like
Yeah, I know.
you get
Well,
burned out.
exactly. I mean, it's kind of like, when you first maybe start with photography, you have families that
Yeah,
would ask me, "Oh, can you take her?" And I do not do family photography or babies or weddings. And you'd want to say yes because you
you're
want,
afraid. You're
yeah.
right. You want the money. Yeah.
I did take somebody's advice. Somebody asked me to do their wedding, a friend of mine, and I said, no, I don't do weddings. I mean, that's a whole other animal.
Yes.
And they were like, yeah, but it's small and we like your photography. And I said no.
Yeah.
And and thank God, because if I had done that, then I probably would have gotten more inquiries. And
Right.
I had to,
Totally.
yeah, it felt wrong because I'm like, oh my God, I knew. How could I say no to business? But in the long run, it was the best
I think it's
choice.
the best thing you could do is setting your boundaries, saying no so that you could say yes to the right clients.
Yeah.
Part of having a niche is being polarizing, saying this is not what I do. This is not what I'm an expert in. This is not who I serve, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And saying, this is exactly this specific market is who I serve. This is a specific solution I have. This is a specific problem that I solve. This is my specific area of expertise. And here's an invitation. If you want to work with me, great. We're going to knock it out of the park. But if not, there's someone else out there, another niche out there that you can find.
Well, that's what I love about working with clients. Sorry, my cat is like trying to jump, always only pays attention to me when I'm doing this.
Of course.
That's what I like about doing the personal branding with clients, because I find that the process really helps you get more specific.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, there's plenty of people that now that we're talking, I know I can send your way that come to me too early, and
Mm-hmm.
that I can say, oh no, you need to, work with Malika because you need to get all of your branding straight. But I love the process of when they've already done that, but then they need the visual part.
Yes.
And you can, even when you're doing the visual part, telling that visual brand story, you can even it even helps them get more specific, because you're thinking about who do you want to attract,
Yeah.
and what would they want to
Yeah. Like the
see?
locations, the wardrobe, the props for that specific person that you're trying to serve, right? Like it's really like a party of one versus like a party of everyone. No, that's not how we have impact. You have more impact when you can like actually think of a specific person to serve. And then when you get really good results, it's like rinse and repeat for more and more of them. You want to clone that person. It's so hard, and we all did this when you start your business. You're trying to work with everyone who comes your way, and you're kind of spinning in all different directions because you have a family that wants photography and there's a senior portrait. And guess what? There are systems that are different. There are approaches that
Mm-hmm.
are different for each of them. And in the long run, it's not sustainable. And so that's why for me, niching is a way to maintain your energy, always bring your A game, keep you, engaged because you know that you're passionate about this client, you're passionate about your expertise, you get really good results. Um, Instead of just trying to appeal to everyone.
Yeah. So
So
who is your niche?
who is my niche? So my niche is female entrepreneurs, but they're mostly solopreneurs and they are in service-based industries. So I'm
Mm,
talking photographers, life coaches, business coaches, nutritionists, designers, and they're really in saturated markets. There's so many, and they don't know how to cut through the noise. They get stuck in all the nitty gritty daily stuff, but they know that they want to grow and scale their brand and be the leader. They just don't know how to tweak their messaging. They don't know how to find the niche to do that. And so I do that strategic work with them,
mm,
with their message, finding the niche, looking at their offer, their frameworks, their signature talk. Everything needs to get really tight, starting with the niche. So like,
yeah.
what are you going to talk about at a conference if you don't know what your niche is?
Yeah.
What are you going to offer as your signature offer if you don't know what your area of expertise and who you're meant to serve is? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it always starts with the niche, the messaging, and then all those other things that are important for branding come after that. And so I help my clients with sort of all of that, wherever they are in terms of, their journey in branding.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I think there's a lot of fear in niching, like we discussed, right? You're afraid that you're going to, oh my God, I'm going to like leave out this huge group, but by specializing, you're attracting more of that. And it's not to say that you can't serve someone. So say, for example, I'm like, okay, I specialize in photography for women 45 plus.
Mm-hmm.
That's who's attracted to me. They like how I take pictures of older women. I can relate to women that age, blah, blah, blah. But it's not to say that in my networking group, for instance, someone that's 35 is like, Kim, I love your work. I want to
Right.
work with you. You can still
It's your
attract.
choice then. That's your
Yeah.
choice of like if you want to do that. And it's your choice if you say, nope, I'm not going to do that because I'm just going to keep the door open for my ideal client. But the messaging is for that 45-year-old woman.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to talk about her insecurities with her aging and feeling not as young as it's a different pain point than the 35-year-old woman, right?
Right.
You could talk about how I am you. I know what you're going through. I know how to pose women of age, right? I know how to look for a wardrobe that's going to flatter a midlife woman, right?
Yep.
So that language is going to have people like me, I'm 50, leaning in because I don't want a 20-year-old taking my picture and not understanding what's going on in my mind and in my body to make me look the way I want to look in my photos.
Right, right. And so do you think that your niching, like moving to a new state, I bet it helped because, well, not niching, you're not, I guess being able to focus on who you want, has that helped you to be able to move to a new place and meet the people that you want in your sphere?
Yes and no. I think, knowing what my niche is and really committing and making sure that I'm like standing, I always say standing in that power, right? I'm, I'm not going to do what many of us do when we're starting business and just kind of, again, work with anyone. I'm going to just work with the people that I know matches my skill set and my strengths. And so
Mm,
that is regardless if I live in Maine or if I lived in New York or I lived in California. I think I'm going to attract those women that are in that season that are hitting a wall because they're seeing their competitors getting their clients and they're like, I'm just as good or even better, but there's something missing in my message or something, and I'm not getting to the next level.
yeah.
That's who I want to work with to get them to that next level, to push them to thinking hard about their business. It's often you have to remind people about their professional and personal experiences, their passions and their values. That's a lot of the brand new work is I have to remind them of all of this and then pick those pieces that you see reoccurring, the themes, to put into this niched message.
Mm,
And once they see that, they're more invested in it because they're like, oh my God, I forgot that I have all of these credentials to do this, or I forgot my personal experience actually makes sense to leverage that for this particular market, right?
mm.
And then, then the work gets exciting because then they're willing to commit and then they're willing to be visible and then they're willing to go out there and try to attract the right clients. And the confidence level is through the roof.
Mm. Yeah, I find it fascinating. But you're super talented in being able to identify these different speaking points for different women in different careers. I hope I'm making sense with that because I remember I spoke with you for like an hour and I was like, oh my God, it was like the most valuable hour of my life. And I'm like, seriously, I tell everybody that. And I'm like, how? It's a gift that you have. So it's like, I, I can see like the creative part of loving photography that, drew you into that. That's that creative mind and visually. But you're also with the branding, and the marketing, you've learned to not only the visual, but to be able to listen to what somebody does and their experience and put some bullet points and clearly give them a roadmap to what their
Thank
niche would
you.
be.
I,
Yeah.
I think it's like listening and then connecting the dots. I don't know what the word is, but there's like connecting the dots that I can just automatically do quickly that gets this brand clarity. And really, it's kind of, I'm just sort of reframing or repeating what you're saying, but there's a linear, more logical flow to it. And everyone's like, did I say that? I'm like, yes, you said that. I'm just sort of, reflecting what you said, but in a way that maybe makes it more concise and
Mm-hmm.
clear. But that's what I love to do. Like I love to just to hear what everyone's going through, hear where their offers are, hear their, clients that they're working with. And it's like that auditing and assessing and seeing where the gaps and the holes are. And then offering based on my expertise what I think they should do. And at the end of the day, it's everyone's business, right? We all make decisions, right? We all have our own agency of figuring out what we want to do. But as a mentor, I feel like the work that I do is to help. Maybe it's a shortcut. Maybe it's a strategy you didn't think about, right? Maybe it's an experience that I've had that I can make sure you never have.
Mm.
So I always think I'm a little bit different than a coach as a mentor because, I work with coaches and they ask a lot of questions, right? You ask a lot of questions and you want your clients to come up with their own solutions. Where as a mentor, I'm like, this is what I think you should do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Let's just get right to it. This is what you should do. And you know what? That's what feels good. People want that. They
Yeah.
want somebody to listen to what they're saying. And if you have the gift that you have where you can take that information, repurpose it in a way that, like, oh, okay. And then it's like you have that plan. That's what I loved about your work is you've got this concrete plan that you can work with. Oh, one last question before we go. So you're just confirming everything. Like if you've got this, itch or this desire to really explore it and see where it goes, right? It's worth the risk. Obviously, you're doing what you're very talented and gifted at, and that makes you feel good as well. And so taking those steps it's just as important to find out what you don't like
Yes.
as what you do like. But I have a question about the public speaking. So because I think that's another thing that people can be nervous about, but it's important to get yourself out there. Have you always liked public
Never,
speaking? Okay,
never.
so
I mean, always, not that I'm a shy person, but like very nervous just to go out there and start speaking. Do much better in a virtual environment, do much better in a smaller environment. I'm a very prepared speaker.
mhm.
I like to lean on my slides. I like to have my information. So I know what my skills are, but that has only because I've made myself do it probably in the last 5 to 7 years. And it's a
Mhm.
muscle, right? You just got to keep flexing it, and I get better and better. But I would not say I'm a born public speaker. No, no, no. I was always very nervous. Never, happy to share my thoughts because I'm outspoken that way, but like leading a room and all of that. But I put myself in situations where I had to do it. So I
Mhm.
was a leader in a women's networking group. So, every month I would have to stand up in front of these women and lead, right? Um, and again, reinventing yourself, seeing, I want to be a good speaker. I want
Yeah.
to lead a room. I want to have a community. And so knowing what I want, the vision, and then sort of reverse engineering and taking up opportunities that fell in my lap or putting myself out there in a way so that I'm always growing.
Yeah, it's doing the uncomfortable things. That's what you have to do to grow. I just was writing down that niching also, it's like when you know who you are, you're more confident. That's what I was writing while you were talking.
Yes.
And I bet you when you're niching and you're doing all of that exercise to be able to be seen and heard as an expert, when you know who you are, it's much easier. It makes
Yeah.
that process much easier,
No
correct?
imposter syndrome, right? You've identified your area of mastery, your area of excellence. And as women, we need to embrace that. We need to be like, yes, I am the bomb in this and commit to it. And then it will make things much easier, right? Then your confidence and your leadership and, inspiring and motivating other people that come hand in hand with that. But it's when we're kind of like dabbling in all the things and you're playing it safe. And I think, we all go through that, but there's a fork in the road. We all meet as business owners, and that's where you need to make those bigger decisions to just commit and go all in what you're already good at. You either need me to tell you or you need to just do it yourself.
Okay, you've just convinced me. I've been on this fence, and then before our call, I was talking to somebody, and I'm like, I don't know if I should like niche that way, but every time I talk to you, I'm convinced I should do it. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I love, love, love talking with you. And can you I'm going to put your information. I will share this on my website and on YouTube, and all your information will be there. But can you tell us where we can find you?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so wonderful. You can find me on Instagram at malikamalhotra.co. That's where I live most of the time. Also on my website, malikamalhotra.co. And when you're there, check out, I have a free community called the Brand Power Hour where I do free live events twice a month, trainings. I invite guest experts. Would love to invite your community to join me there as well.
Oh, awesome. And if you need photography, you're in your beautiful office that we can
Yes,
see. I mean, your studio we can see. So you do still do the
I do.
small
Come
percentage
to
of that.
Maine.
So,
Yes, come
yeah.
to Maine. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Kim.
Thank you. It was great to talk with you.